All right, let's dive into the mind of Ray Dalio, the billionaire who founded the world's biggest hedge fund. But look, this is not about stock tips. This is about a powerful life philosophy, one that was born from a failure so massive it nearly cost him everything. So let's just kick things off with a pretty shocking idea, especially coming from one of the most successful investors on the entire planet. You heard that right. And no, this is not him being falsely modest. This is the absolute core belief that Dalio says is behind all of his success. It's this idea of radical humility, a principle that was forged in the fire of one of the most painful, most public failures of his entire career. But to really get why that failure was so important, we have to go back in time. Because, you see, the Ray Dalio of the early 1980s was, well, he was the exact opposite of humble. He was a brilliant, super confident, and, let's be honest, an increasingly arrogant prodigy who was convinced he had the whole world figured out. I mean, this guy started young. While other kids were out caddying for some pocket change, Dalio was taking his earnings and buying stock. He bought into Northeast Airlines just because it was trading for under $5 a share. And you know what? He got lucky. The airline got bought out and his investment tripled, just like that. And that early win lit a fire of confidence that would pretty soon turn into some dangerous overconfidence. So fast forward to the early 80s, and his firm, Bridgewater, is absolutely on fire. He had this unique way of seeing the economy as a kind of giant machine, and his models were making these incredibly accurate calls, like predicting a major debt crisis before it happened. And pretty quickly, he became the go-to guy, the expert everyone wanted to hear from. And you have to remember, this was a wild time. The markets were just in complete turmoil. We're talking interest rates soaring to record highs, inflation totally out of control, and debt levels that were higher than they'd been since the Great Depression. Dalio looked at all this chaos, and he was absolutely 100% certain he knew exactly what was going to happen next. So what does he do? He doesn't just tell his clients, oh no. He goes on the biggest, most influential financial TV show of the time and declares, with absolute certainty, mind you, that the U.S. economy was about to drive right off a cliff and into another depression. And he was dead wrong. I mean, spectacularly wrong. Instead of a crash, the market did the exact opposite. The Fed cut interest rates, a ton of money flooded into the country, and it kicked off one of the longest, most powerful bull markets in all of American history. The fallout from being so wrong and so publicly wrong, it was just catastrophic. His bets completely imploded. He lost his clients' money, he lost all of his own money, and then came what he calls one of the most painful moments of his entire life. He had to lay off the people he worked with, people he considered family, until he was the only employee left at his own company. He had hit absolute rock bottom. He was so broke, he had to borrow $4,000 from his own dad just to cover his family's bills. His dream was completely shattered. But here's the thing. This moment, this abyss, as he calls it wasn't the end. It was actually the beginning. This unbelievably painful experience became the single most important turning point of his life. It forced him to tear down his whole approach to making decisions and rebuild it from scratch. You see, all that pain and all that humility, it sparked this massive shift in his thinking. He went from the arrogance of thinking, I know I'm right, to the genuine curiosity of asking, wait a minute, how do I know I'm right? That one little word changed everything. He realized he just couldn't trust his own gut anymore, or how smart he thought he was. He needed a system. So he started writing everything down, every decision, every mistake, and he began to build what he now calls his principles, which you can think of as a collection of timeless recipes for dealing with reality. His new approach was built on a totally different foundation. Instead of just trusting his own genius, he went out looking for the smartest people he could find who disagreed with him. He built this culture he calls an idea meritocracy, where the best ideas win no matter who they come from. See, the goal wasn't to be right anymore. The goal was to find out what is true by letting every idea get challenged and stress tested out in the open. And this whole new way of thinking, this principled approach, it completely changed how he saw success and failure. He started to see that growth isn't some straight line going up and up. It's actually a continuous loop. Okay, so take a look at this. This diagram right here is really the heart of his whole philosophy. It's basically a map for how we can make real progress in pretty much any part of our lives. So here's how it works. You start by setting these huge, audacious goals. And when you push your limits to try and reach them, you are inevitably going to fail and feel some pain. But, and this is the key, that pain is a signal, it's a puzzle. And if you can just be humble enough to reflect on that failure, figure out what went wrong, you can learn a new principle from it. That principle makes you better, you improve, and that allows you to go after an even bigger, more audacious goal. It's not about avoiding failure, it's about learning how to fail well. Now, this brings us to what might be the most important point of all. After documenting hundreds and hundreds of his own principles, Dalio's ultimate message is not for you to just go and copy them. He's very clear about this. He wants you to think for yourself. He wants you to look at his journey, look at his principles as sort of a case study, but then you need to reflect on your own experiences, your own successes, and yes, your own painful failures, to build a set of principles that are genuinely yours. And that brings it all right back to you, doesn't it? After seeing how Dalio went from an arrogant failure to a principled success, the most important question isn't what are Ray Dalio's principles? The most important question is what are yours? What are the fundamental truths that you use to navigate your life?